Guaido, of course, cosplayed as president for 3 months, gallivanting around the world, subverting international law time and time again. So I guess it's not surprising that they're getting desperate, right? And they're trying to stage several coup attempts, right? And so this is the latest attempt. I was very, very disturbed waking up to seeing that there was a military coup. As we know, that this started as a parliamentary coup attempt. It's kind of manifested into a military coup attempt. That shows you how dramatic the escalations have been. And are going to continue to be. And we should be very, very worried about how dramatic these escalations are getting. When I was there in 2017 on the ground, there were violent armed insurrections being fomented by the protesters. But it is very, very scary to see now soliciting, even though it was just a dozen military personnel, soliciting them to try to stage this violent insurrection, bolstering Juan Guaido, the Trump puppet, and actually shooting at police and GNB soldiers. Now, I think one really disturbing aspect of this is kind of Juan Guaido's media arm. He has the propaganda arm of the entire Western corporate media. I woke up to Twitter moments, basically just parroting what he was saying all over corporate media, essentially acting as his propaganda talking points. And I find that very, very bizarre, that, he just has to declare something and you have everyone from the Washington Post to Twitter itself repeating and parroting his propaganda line.
We also asked Abby what she thought about comments made by U.S. officials, including Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton, who said that the Monroe Doctrine is back.
This is really, really disturbing. Again, the U.S. has always considered Latin America its property. Again, the Trump administration kind of says the quiet parts out loud. This is the hideousness of U.S. empire. Trump's cabinet is not afraid to vocalize what the bipartisan foreign policy establishment really believes about Latin America. They believe that Latin America is the U.S. empire's backyard, and they have the right, the preordained right to do whatever they want to, quote unquote, democratize the region. Trump championed himself as this anti-interventionist, right? But when it comes to our hemisphere, he said it's different. And he picked the most vile war criminals to lead this regime change attempt. And we all know that he's not going to back down. And in fact, he doubles down on some of his worst failures. Now, John Bolton has been extremely brazen about the Monroe Doctrine, his bloodlust for overthrowing democratic leaders, installing a fascist regime. He doesn't mince words about that. He's even begging soldiers to defect, offering to give them amnesty. You have so-called Christian Marco Rubio openly tweeting Gaddafi being lynched in an open death threat to Maduro. And then you have Mike Pompeo actually saying the most bald-faced lies of all. And again, corporate media just printing them as fact. Everything from Hezbollah has active cells in Caracas to, Maduro was going to step down. He was on an airplane tarmac, and then Russia, you got a call from Putin saying, don't step down. So this is kind of a coup by tweet in the most grotesque way possible, where we can really see the heavy hand of empire being played and documented before our eyes.
She also commented on U.S. threats of military intervention and whether they're preparing for that kind of escalation.
John Bolton gave that Troika of Tyranny speech, and I think that really was mapping out what they wanted to do over Trump's first term. I see people laughing, congratulating, themselves, saying the coup is over, what a big failure, kind of laughing at these people. I don't think that's the right approach here. Look, 40,000 Venezuelans have been killed by U.S. sanctions since 2017. That is genocidal. That is criminal. They're crimes against humanity. Can you imagine if Maduro's government had killed 40,000 American civilians? We're in a never-ending war on terror because 3,000 American lives were taken on 9/11. Just fathom. It's unfathomable, right? But we shouldn't be laughing. We shouldn't be scoffing at this, saying, oh, it's over. What a joke. John Bolton is responsible for the deaths of 1 million people. Elliot Abrams is responsible for genocide in Latin America. 40,000 Venezuelan lives are a drop in the bucket to these genocidal warmongers who will stop at nothing to get what they want. The coup stages have failed because of the sheer resilience of the Venezuelan people, but that does not mean that the U.S. empire is going to forgive or forget their regime change policy, Carla. Again, this goes far beyond the Trump administration. This is a bipartisan foreign policy effort. I just saw Joe Biden supporting the coup attempt, saying we must support the National Assembly and the ouster of Maduro. Elizabeth Warren has been on record saying she supports this coup attempt. I mean, this is a bipartisan effort across the board. And if Biden wins, we're not going to see it stop, is my point. And I think that this is just the first term of the Trump administration where he is going to double down until they enact some sort of regime change effort, which means a possible military intervention. And I think that they are determined to do this. And it's really going to basically stand with the militant efforts of U.S. anti-imperialists, like we're seeing the brave people putting their bodies on the line to protect this embassy in D.C. That's what we're going to need to see happen here. A widespread anti-war movement mobilizing on the ground to put our bodies on the line to stop the U.S. empire from overthrowing yet another democratically elected leader that could have widespread devastating reverberations, not only for Venezuela, but the entire region at large.
And lastly, we asked Abby about the role of activists in the fight against the U.S. intervention.
Over this 3-month ongoing coup attempt, 0% of elite media commentators, 0% of corporate media journalists have opposed this U.S. empire regime change policy. But despite that, Carla, we are seeing massive, widespread resistance on the ground. We saw thousands of people come all over the country to oppose the coup attempt in D.C. Hundreds of people here in Los Angeles opposing the coup attempt. I mean, we are opposing the corporate media. We are making our own media. We are not listening to them anymore. And yeah, I think that works for who are reading the New York Times and Washington Post. That propaganda may work for them. But this is the generation of the war on terror. My generation and the people younger than me, we've experienced an ongoing failed war in Iraq. We've experienced the failed war in Afghanistan. We're not poisoned from New York Times propaganda. We understand what's at stake, and we understand the millions of lives that have been taken based on lies from the U.S. government. And you know, we don't want Trump to overthrow another elected government in Venezuela and Latin America. And we know that it will exacerbate the refugee crisis, cause an untold amount of death and misery. So I have amazing faith in the young generation here to oppose this, to oppose Trump, and again, put our bodies on the line to stop this.